What did you just say?
I couldn't help but be shocked. A luxurious restaurant in a high-end hotel. The table was adorned with sumptuous dishes, symbolizing the importance of this special day. Sitting across from me was Brandon, the father of my daughter's fiancé, with a malicious grin on his face.
Sarah grew up in a single-mother household, and she didn't even go to college, right? She must have had a tough time. Like maybe delivering newspapers early in the morning to pay for her tuition.
Or perhaps the nightlife industry? At first, his words seemed to express concern about Sarah's single-mother upbringing. However, they quickly turned into something mocking. I wanted to believe I had misheard. Today was a family meeting with my daughter, Sarah's fiancé, Nicholas, and his parents. It was an important occasion where we were supposed to become one family, yet the words spoken were incredibly insulting. Being directly or indirectly mocked for being a single mother was something I had sadly grown accustomed to. But this time, the setting made it even more intolerable.
Is that so? You must have had a hard time.
Miranda, Brandon's wife, sitting next to him, said something unbelievably condescending, as if she truly pitied me from the bottom of her heart. What is wrong with these people? Their behavior was beyond rude. Sarah had told me a bit about Nicholas's parents beforehand. Brandon, a well-known lawyer, famous not only for his skills but also for the many bad rumors surrounding him. And his wife Miranda, a daughter from an upper-class family who married the son of a lawyer. I had heard she was kind, but judging by her current behavior, she seemed extremely naive.
Dad, Mom, how can you say that to Sarah and Jessica? It's disrespectful.
Nicholas, sitting next to Sarah, tried to soften the situation. He finally got over the shock of Brandon's abusive remarks and turned red with anger. Sarah had told me that Nicholas was gentle and rarely raised his voice. As Sarah said, he seemed like a kind person, and I found myself nodding calmly despite the unexpected turn of events.
What's disrespectful?
Miranda, seemingly not understanding Brandon's sarcasm, looked puzzled. Brandon, on the other hand, had a mocking attitude, as if to say, "You inexperienced fool.
What's wrong with speaking the truth? I've seen many people from single-mother and single-father households. Many of them ended up committing crimes and came crying to their families. What?"
My vision gradually turned red. Being mocked for being a single mother was one thing. But to insinuate that we had lived our lives doing something shameful or criminal was something I could not tolerate. And apparently, Sarah felt the same way.
Sure, I didn't go to college, but now I work at the same law firm as Nicholas, and I'm an international lawyer. Haven't you heard that from Nicholas? What?
Now it was Brandon's turn to be at a loss for words. I felt a bad sense of satisfaction. But
someone like you couldn't possibly become an international lawyer. Don't lie. Have some shame, shame on you.
Brandon, his face turning as red as it could get, berated Sarah. The atmosphere was no longer suitable for a family meeting, charged with anger. Sarah tried to respond forcefully, but Brandon spoke first.
How did you get that qualification anyway? Probably by offering sexual favors for business deals, right? Single mothers like you and your kind are all the same. Even your dead father, I bet he didn't die in a dignified way either.
I heard a sound, like something thick breaking inside me. It wasn't just my imagination. Otherwise, why would my vision be so red and wavering like water?
What do you know, Mom?
Sarah's worried voice broke through, noticing my change. She was regaining her composure. But it was too late to stop.
What do you even understand? My husband died helping others, standing up for his sense of justice. You know nothing about him, about us who loved him and his sense of right.
I am Jessica. I met my husband, Rodney, back when I was still a student. At that time, I was confident in my language skills and, being young, I traveled abroad alone. It was during a long summer break. I didn't join any tour groups, just wandered around tourist spots with a guidebook in hand. I knew there were dangerous areas, so I took all possible precautions against theft and pickpocketing. But I am a young person venturing out of a safe area for the first time. I was quickly targeted by a shady local man.
Hey there, beautiful. First time here? I know some beautiful spots not in the guidebook. Let me show you around. No, thank you. Please leave me alone.
Looking back, my foreign language skills were terrible. Suddenly, the man's speech sped up and became hard to understand. Even though it was just my unfamiliarity, it was probably normal speed for him. I responded awkwardly, with incorrect grammar. That likely made him think I was an easy target. Despite feeling chills, I tried to keep smiling, but he suddenly grabbed my arm.
No, let go. It's fine, there's a hotel nearby if you're tired.
What is he saying? I thought frantically, struggling to shake off his hand. But the difference in physical strength between men and women was evident. Moreover, he was quite well built. It wasn't easy to break free. I looked around for help, but even in a foreign land, it was the same. People passed by either ignoring us or seeing it as a minor squabble, offering no assistance. I felt helpless. I thought of my parents, who had been worried about my trip until the last moment. I felt sorry for them. I might never see them again. Just as I was about to give up.
Hey! There you are! Over here!
A male voice I didn't recognize. From his accent, he didn't sound like a local. Both I and the man holding my arm looked puzzled. Unfazed by the tense atmosphere, the man, likely from my own country, approached us with a smile.
Who the hell are you? Thank goodness I found you. She's my friend. I lost sight of her for a moment and got worried. Who are you?
Out of the frying pan into the fire. Speaking softly in my native language, I asked the stranger. Then the man also whispered. Trust me. He whispered back. Then he turned back to the other man, smiling, and gestured for him to release my hand.
I did try to warn her at first, but she has this troublesome habit of getting so engrossed in unusual things that she forgets her surroundings. It seems she couldn't control herself. You really helped us. Especially in a foreign land, where there's even rumors about people pretending to flirt only to engage in human trafficking.
The man's face tightened as if he realized this might be true. He then released my hand and hurried away, almost fleeing. Did I get saved?
Yes, it seems so.
As the man's figure disappeared, the previously smiling and composed man suddenly collapsed to the ground, drained of energy.
Hey, are you okay?
I had suspected him of being a shady character, but this sudden collapse made me forget all those thoughts. Peering into his face, I realized he had been putting on a brave front. Sweat trickled down his smiling, yet pained face.
I'm not doing so well, but
I'm glad it worked out somehow. His face showed genuine relief from the bottom of his heart. Seeing his soft expression relaxed me a bit and reminded me of something important. Oh my. I didn't even thank you properly. I'm so sorry. And thank you. You saved me. When I hastily expressed my gratitude, the man seemed a bit taken aback. It's really okay. Meeting people, even through small things, is fate. It's only natural to help someone in trouble. He stood up with a smile, lightly brushing the dirt off his pants. Helping someone in trouble is only natural. His calm words echoed in my mind. There are still people like this out there. People who help others in need without expecting anything in return. Just because they have a strong sense of justice. But really, be careful in this country. What I said earlier is not a lie. He was probably referring to the rumors about human trafficking disguised as flirting. Thinking back, I was indeed in a dangerous situation. If this man hadn't helped me. If that other man had taken more forceful measures. When I think about it, I and this man were truly lucky. Thinking about it made me tremble with fear. Well, I'll be going now. His voice snapped me back to reality. I didn't know why. But maybe I was already drawn to his sense of justice at that moment.
Wait, please!
I found myself calling out to him as he was about to leave. The man turned back with a curious look. I called out without thinking, but had no idea what to say next. Desperately trying to think, I finally said, "Please let me thank you properly. I just realized I didn't even ask your name." It sounded like a cheesy pickup line. But the man, without suspicion, just gave a wry smile and told me his name. My name isn't anything special, but it's Rodney. I'm just a solo traveler. This was how I met Rodney, who would later become my husband. After that incident in a foreign land, we exchanged contact information and, strangely enough, started dating soon after I returned home. Whenever our schedules allowed, we went on numerous dates. I soon realized that Rodney was a man of unyielding integrity and justice. During our dates, if he saw someone in need, even if it wasn't a person, he would rush to help regardless of our plans. For example, if he saw a lost child, he would stay with them until they were reunited with their parents, even if it took hours. Despite his fear of heights, he once climbed a tree to retrieve a baseball for some kids who had gotten it stuck. If he saw an injured stray cat, he would pick it up and rush it to the animal hospital without a second thought, not caring if he got blood on himself. He would take responsibility and care for it until he found it a new home. Honestly, sometimes, I felt a bit uneasy about his tendency to prioritize strangers over me. But that was just how he was, and it was one of the reasons I fell in love with him, so I chose to keep quiet. Time passed, we got married, and the following year, we had a child. Our daughter, Sarah, who had a gentle face just like him. Since Sarah was born, our daily life seemed to be filled with even more happiness. I had a loving husband, an adorable daughter. We weren't exactly wealthy, but we cherished our modest happiness, laughing together as a family. Those were days without any problems. However, those happy days came to an abrupt end. 5 years after Sarah was born, Rodney died at the young age of 31. It was a day I'll never forget. An unseasonal heavy rain was falling. Sarah and I stayed up, rubbing our sleepy eyes, waiting for Rodney, who was late coming home from work. The things Sarah and I talked about. I don't remember the details that much. I only remember the sound of the rain pounding down, and the sudden ringing of the phone informing me that Rodney had been taken to the hospital. With a sleepy Sarah, we finally made it to the hospital through the pouring rain, only to be greeted by Rodney, who was already cold. The doctor standing next to me calmly told me the cause of Rodney's death was drowning. In the midst of this heavy rain, he had jumped into the river to save a drowning boy, and only Rodney ended up losing his life. That was so typical of Rodney, I thought, as a strangely calm part of me noted. He saved someone, not thinking of himself, and ended up dying, a beloved and important hero.
Mommy, what's wrong?
Sarah, still looking sleepy, gazed up at me. I couldn't cry. I couldn't let myself cry in front of Sarah, who didn't understand what was happening. I desperately tried to hold back my tears. But,
Mommy, why is Daddy sleeping? Sarah, stop!
I instinctively stopped Sarah, who was trying to approach Rodney, and hugged her tightly. I didn't know why I did that myself. Mommy, it hurts, Sarah said from within my arms. But I didn't let go, holding her even tighter. As if to shield her from the reality of Rodney's death, I hugged her small body. Also, as if to shield myself from that same reality. That small, moving warmth. A sign of life. Unable to bear it, I silently let my tears flow. What followed were stormy days. I held Rodney's funeral, desperately, watching Sarah, who finally understood Rodney's death, sobbing. Someone claiming to represent the boy Rodney saved came to the funeral, but I don't remember much, being overwhelmed with arranging the funeral while feeling a deep sense of loss. Even after the funeral, peace did not return to us. With Rodney gone, we became a single-mother household. Fortunately, with the savings Rodney left us, the job I had before Sarah was born, and the support from many people who admired Rodney, we managed to get by. However, relying on that alone would eventually lead to running out of resources. Therefore, I decided to start working again once things had settled down a bit. I worked day and night, without regard to the time. As a result, I felt guilty, knowing that Sarah was likely feeling lonely. Yet, I couldn't afford to stop. Of course, there was the financial aspect, but more importantly, it was because of a promise I had made to Rodney one day.
Sarah should see the world. It might be difficult to do it the way I did, but I want her to see the world, to understand it. And one day, I hope she becomes a kind person who can help those in need.
These were Rodney's words, often repeated like a mantra during his lifetime. I wanted Sarah to see the world. I wanted her to experience many things. I didn't want her to give up on those experiences because of money. That was my only driving force. Sarah never complained to my face about it. Maybe she was being considerate in her own way. Her grades were always top-notch, so she wouldn't have to go to cram school. Teachers constantly suggested prestigious private schools, but she stubbornly chose public schools. She went through public middle and high schools, and then came the time to think about her next steps.
Mom, I have a favor to ask.
Sarah said this abruptly. Ever since Rodney passed away, Sarah had never made such a selfish request, possibly out of consideration. Her wish was to travel the world instead of going to college. She wanted to see the world and experience things that school and books couldn't teach, things that could only be understood on the ground. Even knowing her true feelings, I couldn't help but wonder why. As a parent, I wanted her to go to college without worrying about finances and to live a happy life. While I had those thoughts, I also questioned if going to college and living in a narrow world would truly make her happy. Was it right for a parent to crush the first selfish wish of a child who had endured so much until now? Could I, with my own ego, destroy the wishes and promises that Rodney had always spoken of during his life? The answer was, of course, no.
All right, go ahead.
Fortunately, I had saved enough money over the years to cover the travel expenses without needing to splurge. When I told her this, Sarah cried with joy and repeatedly promised to work and pay it back. But I refused, saying that after all the patience she had shown, she should allow me to do this much. And so, after graduating from high school, Sarah set off on her journey around the world. By coincidence, it seemed as if she mirrored Rodney's image from that day, something I hadn't shared with her. Every day, without fail, I received a message from Sarah, not only to let me know she was safe but also to share her experiences. There might have been issues with international signals, but it was likely she was also being mindful of communication costs. She had grown into such a considerate child. The messages varied slightly each day, usually consisting of text and photos from her travels. Sometimes, she expressed amazement at the crowds and high prices in major cities abroad, along with photos of skyscrapers she had never seen before. Other times, she shared how people helped her when she was struggling in a foreign country, along with heartwarming photos of her with those who had helped her. There were also times when she entered developing countries, where she was deeply moved by the locals' determination to live their lives despite their circumstances. She felt ashamed of herself for having given up on various things because of being from a single-parent household. With such messages, she sent beautiful photos of sunsets she had seen with the local people. One day, amidst the joyful yet humbling exchanges of messages, there was a note saying, "I'm coming back soon." It read, "The Mom, I want to become an international lawyer. When I return, I will study law, go abroad, and get qualified as an international lawyer. I want to help people from many different countries." Sarah didn't know much about Rodney's sense of justice and desire to help others. It was one of the traits that attracted me to him and made me love him deeply. I never realized that Sarah had inherited this beautiful quality from him.
She truly grew up to be a kind person, just like you wished.
I reported Sarah's growth to Rodney's photo while showing him the message. In the photo, he seemed to have a bittersweet smile. And then, time passed again. When Sarah returned, she worked at a law firm while saving for exam fees and studying for her lawyer qualification. I offered to cover the exam fees, but she refused and insisted on achieving it on her own. Is this what it means for a child to become independent? While feeling proud of Sarah's growth, I also felt a tinge of loneliness. Although she declined financial support, I helped her in other ways, particularly in her daily life. I made her late-night snacks when she worked late and packed sandwiches for her lunch to save on food expenses. "You don't have to go through all this trouble," she said with a wry smile, but she accepted my help nonetheless. Years passed since the journey that changed Sarah, and she finally qualified as a lawyer and worked at a law firm. There, she gained more knowledge and experience, and eventually, with her boss's permission, went abroad. In a foreign land, she achieved her dream of becoming an international lawyer. She sent me this news when she turned 27. Since then, a lot has happened. Just like the day she told me she wanted to become an international lawyer. Along with the notification of her qualification, there was a photo of Sarah smiling. I showed the message to Rodney's photo.
Sarah has grown into a kind person, just like you. She will help many people through law. There will be tough times and challenges. So please, watch over her from your side.
I thought of Rodney and made my wish. I had no idea then that a year later, Sarah would meet her future spouse at work and decide to get married. And that I would face such an insulting situation at that family meeting. I quickly recounted my memories and promises with my late husband, and proudly told them about our daughter who inherited his sense of justice and became an international lawyer. Suddenly, the room fell silent. Even the unpleasant parents of her partner, Nicholas, and Sarah herself froze in shock. I had done it. But, although I felt sorry for Sarah, I had no regrets. Rodney had helped a stranger boy selflessly and lost his life. My beloved, proud Rodney. I won't tolerate anyone mocking his life and the reason for his death, even if they are the parents of my daughter's spouse. Brandon's face turned red with anger. Next to him, Miranda paled and looked back and forth between Brandon and me. I braced myself for the worst words imaginable. It was at that moment when I resolved myself. It was Nicholas who broke the silence first, quite unexpectedly. With an expression of disbelief, Nicholas began to speak.
That person, could it be?
I was the next one to be surprised by what Nicholas said. He was completely right. Nicholas accurately captured Rodney's character from back then, and even knew the name of the hospital where Rodney had been taken.
Nicholas, how do you? So it was true.
Nicholas interpreted my words as confirmation, and his gentle expression contorted. It was a mixture of joy and regret, a kind of bittersweet smile. Then, suddenly, he apologized deeply. It was more than just an apology.
Nicholas? Nicholas. What are you doing?
Brandon, enraged, tried to make Nicholas stand up, but Nicholas brushed his arm away and apologized even more deeply.
Jessica and Sarah. Even though I didn't realize it, my parents were incredibly rude. Nicholas. You don't have to go that far. That's right. We understand your feelings, Nicholas.
Even though we urged him, Nicholas stubbornly refused like a child. No, my parents did something that terrible. Sarah. It might be hard to believe, and even I still can't believe it, but the boy your father saved was me when I was young. It was now our turn to be surprised by his words. This was Nicholas's story. At the time, he was severely bullied at school because of Brandon's bad reputation. On that day, he encountered bullies on his way back from tutoring, and they threw his important tutoring bag into the river. Trying not to worry his parents, he attempted to retrieve the bag by himself. However, young Nicholas slipped and fell into the river. The river, swollen with rain, had a swift current, making it impossible for him to return to the shore on his own. In that situation, Rodney dived into the river to save him, without any regard for his own safety. Rodney first brought Nicholas to the shore, then jumped back into the river to retrieve the bag that had been swept away. Just because Nicholas was in trouble. And as a result, Rodney died. Nicholas knew the name of the hospital where Rodney was taken because his worried housekeeper, who came to pick him up, had called it in. Nicholas was also taken to the same hospital by the paramedics as a precaution. Later, young Nicholas, upon hearing from the nurses that his savior had died, tried to apologize to our family immediately. However, he was prevented by Brandon, who was a renowned lawyer at the time. If it became known that the son of a famous lawyer was bullied and caused someone's death, it would damage his reputation. For such conservative reasons, he left the apology to his representative. Nicholas deeply regretted it. If he hadn't jumped into the river, if he had been more responsible, if he had been a person of justice. Since that day, Nicholas swore to become a lawyer who could help others as much as possible, just like Brandon, but never like Brandon, who was drowned in power. A different kind of silence enveloped the room. Nicholas, filled with rage, remained utterly silent, as if he had become a completely different person. Then, in the next moment, he did something unexpected. He offered a deep apology. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were Nicholas' benefactor. I spoke out of turn." Neither Sarah nor I could say anything. I couldn't fully grasp Sarah's feelings. She simply stared quietly at the family she could consider her father's enemy. As for me, I was on the verge of exploding with anger. I thought, why apologize now? If he was going to apologize, why didn't he come to apologize the moment Rodney passed away? I was convinced that this apology wasn't sincere. However, it was Sarah who spoke first. "Both of you, please stop." Her voice was surprisingly calm and gentle. It wasn't just me who was taken aback by this. Both of them also wore expressions of shock. Sarah continued. "Indeed, it's hard not to feel that apologizing now is too late. Brandon, as a fellow lawyer and as a person, I find it difficult to forgive you for not coming to apologize immediately." Brandon's face flushed red again. But, perhaps realizing he stood no chance, he only let out a small groan. Sarah continued to address him.
I'm sure my father would say this. He'd say he was just glad that the boy from that time is safe. That's all that matters.
Then, crouching in front of Nicholas, who was still kneeling, Sarah spoke with a tearful, bittersweet smile.
My father saved you, and you've carried on his sense of justice. I know this because I've watched you in the office all these years. So, Nicholas, who has carried on my father's will, please marry me.
Are you sure?
Yes, that is an unchangeable fact. But it's also true that you've inherited my father's sense of justice.
Tears streamed down Nicholas' cheeks. Then, grasping Sarah's hands tightly, he said in a voice full of emotion.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll make sure to make you happy.
As Nicholas finally broke down in tears, Sarah gently embraced him. Seeing such a tender moment between the two of them, the anger and resentment within me began to melt away gently. When I looked over at Brandon, he had an awkward expression and was looking away. Perhaps, in his own way, this was his way of acknowledging Sarah and Nicholas's marriage. Was it all right to feel relieved about this? I'm sure Rodney would have said it was. Thinking this, I sent my silent blessings to Nicholas, who was sobbing, and Sarah, who was gently comforting him. At the end of such an eventful day, with the world bathed in the colors of sunset, Sarah, Nicholas, and I found ourselves at a certain place. Rodney's resting place, the cemetery.
I am deeply sorry that I couldn't come to thank you back then because I went against my father's wishes. Although it's late, it's thanks to you that I am here now.
Thank you very much. He said his gratitude. Sarah also spoke to the grave.
Dad, I still feel lonely without you, but thank you for saving Nicholas that day.
Then she laid the bouquet of flowers she had been holding. Today, since it was mainly about Sarah and Nicholas's report, I stood quietly in the background.
Although it might be too much to say, I'll do as much as you did. I promise here and now to help those in need and to protect Sarah from now on. So, Dad, please watch over us from the sky. I will also do my best to help as many people in need as you and Nicholas.
The two of them made their vows in front of Rodney's grave. My daughter, who had grown strong over time, and the young man who had inherited Rodney's sense of justice. Rodney, are you seeing this? The things you did were never in vain. Even though you are gone, your will lives on and is being carried forward. Feeling the joy in my heart, I shed tears for the first time since that funeral day. Hey, you're all set to leave, right? Just waiting for the movers now. I see.
Well, it'll be refreshing not to see your face anymore.
Moreover, being forced to move out and having the locks changed meticulously so I can't ever enter the house again was over the top. I used to question the need for such measures, but now it seems trivial. When I first met my husband, he was a timid man, always wary of others' opinions. But soon after our marriage, he became a classic henpecked husband. And a week after I moved to my new place, my husband showed up, frantic.
Hey, it's me. Open up.
Huh? Who might you be? Pretending to be clueless in front of my frantic husband. I'm Scarlett, 35, working part-time 3 days a week. It's been 2 years since I married Anthony. We didn't have kids, but I thought we could still have a happy life together. In the early days of our marriage, we would spend nights discussing how we wanted to live our lives together. Both of us had little experience in love, so it was a bit tentative at first, but I think we enjoyed our time together.
Let's be one of those couples who stay close even as we get older.
Yes, I would like that. Maybe 2 kids?
I was thinking the same. A boy and a girl.
Me too. Such casual conversations were enjoyable. For me, who had little interest in love or marriage, meeting Anthony was a shock. We met at a party I attended just to make up numbers. He seemed to be there for the same reason, and we hit it off talking about our similar situations, eventually becoming friends. Back then, he was serious and somewhat timid, always considerate towards me, which I found endearing. And then, surprisingly,
Scarlett, I want you to marry me. I'll make sure you are happy. What? But we're not even dating yet? Oh, right.
I wasn't put off by his unexpected proposal, rather, I thought that maybe with him, it could work.
If I'm okay with you, then yes, I accept. Really? Of course.
I still remember how happy Anthony was when I accepted his proposal. I had no doubt that with Anthony, I could have a happy life ahead. We got married in just 3 months after meeting, a whirlwind for both of us. With little experience in love, we often didn't know what to do, but that was part of the fun. Soon after, we started living together, but about a month in, I began to see the difference between ideal and reality.
Scarlett, there's something I would like to ask you.
What is it? That day, Anthony looked different, more serious and tense.
I hate to ask this, but can you quit your job and become a housewife? What?
I was shocked by his sudden statement and couldn't understand why he would say such a thing. After all, he had never once commented on my job before. And this was just the beginning. Can I ask why? When I asked, he sighed before responding.
When Scarlett works, it makes me feel like I'm not needed.
Did someone tell you that?
It's not that, but all the wives of married men in my company are housewives.
I had expressed my desire to continue working when we got married, especially since saving money was important for our future. Still, I couldn't believe Anthony would bring this up now.
But I did say I wanted to keep my job when we got married, right? I know, but as my wife, Scarlett, I wish you would consider my position.
Then why not just pretend that I've quit? There's no need to actually leave my job. I repeatedly expressed my unwillingness to quit, but it seemed Anthony valued social appearance more. My attempts to persuade him seemed to fall on deaf ears.
Look, if things stay this way, I'll be ridiculed by my colleagues and superiors. I'm the head of this household, aren't I? Please, just do as I ask.
Either way, it's not something I can decide on the spot. Let me think about it. Okay, but please make it quick. Yet, I knew I couldn't let things stay this way for long. I feared what else he might say if I didn't act soon. So, I immediately consulted with my boss, Robinson. I had been working as an administrative assistant at this company since high school graduation. Robinson, in a way, had been in a similar situation. Her husband had been a henpecked husband, and unable to tolerate it, she divorced him. Now, she's a hard-working single mother whom I deeply respect.
That must be tough. I think divorce is an option, but it's difficult since you're newlyweds. Yes, I haven't considered that yet. But if you quit, it'll be hard to fill the gap left by Scarlett. I'm not planning on just quitting. I'd like to find a way to keep working if possible.
How about continuing in a part-time capacity for now? I think full-time would be too noticeable.
That's a good idea. I'll discuss it again with Anthony. If he still disagrees, then I'll follow Robinson's suggestion and ask to work part-time.
That sounds like a wise choice.
Always feel free to come to me for advice.
I'm here to help as your senior.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Our conversation continued, and it turned out Robinson's ex-husband also changed drastically after marriage. It was exactly like my current situation. I had never thought about it before, but now I realized that some men change completely after marriage, as if they become someone else. Looking at it another way, maybe I was deceived. Despite several discussions with Anthony, we remained at an impasse.
Anyway, a woman's job after marriage is to listen to her husband and take care of the home, right? What era are you living in? Nowadays, it's normal for both spouses to work. Maybe for other couples, but we are different. You understand that, right? I might, but I can't agree with it. Please, try to understand how I feel.
After that, Anthony kept nagging me daily until I would agree to quit my job. In the end, his attempts to persuade me failed. I contacted Robinson and decided to formally quit. However, in reality, I continued working part-time, 3 days a week. Thankfully, my boss understood my situation and allowed me to work reduced hours. I quit my job at the company, just like Anthony wanted.
Oh, really? Thank you. Now I can relax about my standing at work.
I'm glad to hear that. By this time, it seemed like all Anthony cared about was how he was perceived by others. I couldn't help but feel confused by his drastic change. I had lied to him, preferring that to worsening our relationship. But I soon realized that it was a mistake. I had hoped resetting our relationship would allow us to start afresh. Instead, he behaved as if it was natural for him to be superior and took it out on me.
Today, a junior colleague is coming over. I need you to host. What? I didn't know about this. Sorry, it was a last-minute decision. Just the basics will do. Please prepare. Wait a minute.
He hung up. So, I prepared drinks and snacks for the guest. But it seemed Anthony wasn't pleased.
Didn't I ask you to get things ready for today? But you said just the basics would be fine. You took that seriously. This will lower my reputation. I need you to act properly as my wife.
What's that supposed to mean? I did my best.
What? You have a problem with me?
No, not really. Anthony's face was unlike anything I had seen before. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything more. After that, he began inviting people over almost every week. While he was having fun, he instructed me to stand by, ready for anything. I think he wanted to show off to everyone how capable a husband he was.
Anthony, I think having guests every week is a bit much.
No, it's fine.
Everyone enjoys it, and you should follow my decisions.
That's your duty as my wife, Scarlett.
But it costs money, too.
You'll manage it somehow. But Anthony's excesses showed no signs of stopping.
How am I supposed to manage it? Oh, stop nagging.
Whenever I asked a question he didn't like, he called it nagging and avoided answering. Waking up, preparing meals, making sandwiches for lunch, and getting his suit ready for the day. After seeing Anthony off, I would do household chores. On days with part-time work, I worked from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. There was hardly any time to rest. But I loved my job, and working felt more like a break than anything.
Scarlett, you seem tired lately, aren't you?
Yes, a little bit.
Really? Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Of course. Thank you so much.
Sophia was a truly dependable person, unlike Anthony. She was concerned about how Anthony's treatment of me was getting worse day by day. Sophia knew I was working part-time in secret and kept it hidden from Anthony.
Thank you always, Sophia.
Don't mention it. But I never expected Anthony to act like this.
Neither did I. I have tried talking to him, but he doesn't listen, and we can hardly have a proper conversation anymore.
I'm sorry. If only I were stronger. Don't be hard on yourself. You're doing great with both work and housework. I really appreciate your help.
I'm glad to hear that.
Living with Sophia was nothing but a positive experience for me. But it seemed Anthony didn't like how close Sophia and I were. And because of that, he made an unthinkable move.
Where's Sophia?
Mom's gone now.
What do you mean gone? Mom's getting on in years, and I thought it'd be better for her to be in a facility. You actually put her in a home?
Yeah.
Just finished moving her in. Now I can do whatever I want with the house.
I couldn't believe this happened while I was at my parents' home. To think he would put his own mother in a facility. She was injured, but not to the extent that she needed to be in a facility. He must have sent Sophia away just so he could do as he pleased. When I visited Sophia in the facility center, she seemed surprisingly well.
I'm sorry it came to this. No, it's not your fault, Sophia. I never thought he would go to such extremes. I'm afraid of what he might do if I oppose him. I'll miss Sophia, but I'll try to manage. If you need anything, you're always welcome here. Thank you.
Afterward, we moved out of our current home and into my in-laws' house. Even though I managed the house, Anthony took it for granted and never showed gratitude. The idea of having children, which we had discussed early in our marriage, now seemed completely off the table. Anthony ignored me, preferring to spend his time out and about. Moreover, he started creating inexplicable rules out of nowhere. No matter how late Anthony came home, I had to stay awake waiting for him, and if I woke up later than him in the morning, he would get angry.
What time will you be home today? I'm not sure, but stay up until I get back.
Okay.
Thanks.
One day, after such an exchange, when Anthony came home, I noticed something. As I took his suit to hang it up, I smelled a fragrance I had never smelled before. It was a sweet, feminine scent, and since I don't wear perfume, it was clear evidence of an affair. Whenever he came home late, I would notice the same perfume scent. And that day, unusually, he suggested I could go to bed before him. Something felt off, so I quietly went to the living room to check and overheard their conversation.
She has no idea.
I'll kick her out soon enough. I could hear them clearly, perhaps because the woman's voice was loud. From their conversation, it seemed their relationship had been going on for a while. Although I wasn't surprised because of the perfume incident, I was disgusted. He was still technically Anthony. Even though I wanted to believe in him. His treatment of me never changed. It was approaching 2 years into our marriage.
It's sudden, but I have a business trip the day after tomorrow. I need you to prepare everything for it. That's really short notice.
I'll be gone for about 3 days. Please get my clothes ready.
Understood.
I can't believe he could come up with such a lie about a business trip. It wasn't a business trip, it was a trip with his mistress. I remembered a conversation I had with Anthony's colleague's wife when we met before.
Be careful if he suddenly says he has a business trip. Our company doesn't even have those.
I had also found evidence beforehand. I saw a chat on his mobile phone he had left in the living room, detailing how he took paid leave for this trip. This would be the beginning of the end for us. With proof of his affair, I planned to confront him with divorce papers when he returned. But it was my husband who made the first move.
Are you all set to leave? The movers will be here soon.
That was the first thing he said when he came home. He had told me to leave the house while he was away.
I need you to be out before I get back. What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? Exactly what I said. You can't just spring this on me and expect me to leave immediately. Then I'll wait a bit, but get ready to leave.
See ya. I never thought my once timid, overly concerned about others' opinions husband would turn into such a henpecked husband, but this was the last straw. The future I once imagined with him now seemed like a distant memory. Living with such a man, I couldn't see a bright future ahead. I wonder what will happen next. This might be interesting.
Hasn't the mover arrived yet? No need to rush. They should be here soon. Oh, and I almost forgot to tell you, I'm changing the locks of the house.
Okay. Got it.
Thinking I won't have to see your face again is refreshing.
I thought it was unbelievable, but these were his final words to a wife he had lived with for nearly 2 years. Believing we would no longer be involved with each other, I quickly left the place. After that, I instructed my lawyer to send the divorce papers. Despite the situation, my husband was brazenly posting pictures with his mistress on social media. I wondered how he could be so foolish. How could he be so foolish, not realizing he was providing proof of his infidelity? Even our mutual friends, noticing his odd behavior, reached out to ask what was going on. After being forced out of the in-laws' house, I returned to my job, moving from part-time to full-time again. Furthermore, I moved into my long-aspired suburban high-rise apartment. It was quite spacious for one person, but without Anthony, it felt incredibly comfortable. I was just waiting for any contact from him, but about a month after moving into my new place, early one morning, my doorbell rang. When I checked the monitor, surprisingly, it was Anthony standing there.
Hey, it's me, Anthony. Open up, Scarlett.
His sudden demand to let him in was beyond presumptuous. I just couldn't understand him anymore. I decided to play dumb, thinking it might be more amusing than just turning him away.
Who are you?
I don't know you.
Don't tell me you've forgotten your husband's face. I don't have a husband. I think you're talking about someone else.
He looked desperate, almost on the verge of tears. It was the timid version of him from before we were married. Of course, I didn't let him in and continued to pretend he was a stranger.
Please, just listen. I've been deceived.
And
I need Scarlett's help. I'm sorry, but I have no obligation to help. And if you keep bothering me, I'll call the police, okay? Are you serious? After all, I don't know you.
Anthony probably thought he could rely on me to sort things out when he was in trouble. But the person I am now wouldn't do such a thing. Yet, I was losing my patience with my husband who refused to give up.
Enough is enough. You created this mess, so it's your responsibility to deal with it. You don't have to be so harsh.
What?
Oh, and before I forget, you can't live in your parents' house anymore. What do you mean? Do you know whose name that house is in? No, but it used to be Sophia's, but now it's in my name. Why?
I explained to Anthony why things had come to this. Anthony told me to leave. I had gone to consult with Sophia. When I told her, even Sophia was visibly angry and dismayed.
I can't believe my son turned out to be such a fool. I'm really sorry it turned out this way after all the help you've given me, Sophia.
You're divorcing Anthony, right?
Yes. That's for the best. Then, I'll transfer the house to you, Scarlett. What?
Thus, Sophia transferred the rights to the in-laws' house to me. Unbeknownst to Anthony, he was living with his mistress while all this was happening.
That's the situation. Understand and leave quickly. We probably won't see each other again anyway. Just one last thing. If you keep this up, I will really call the police.
With that, he finally gave up and left. Of course, the divorce went through, and I claimed the divorce settlement guarantee from him. Turns out, Anthony had been significantly deceived and financially drained by his mistress. On top of that, the divorce settlement amounted to around $20,000. His mistress had quickly left him, but I wasn't going to let it slide. I used a lawyer and a detective to track down the location. I'm also claiming a divorce settlement guarantee from that person. It looks like I can claim over $10,000. Additionally, the in-laws' house officially became mine. I had to ask Anthony to leave, and though he was initially reluctant, he had no choice but to accept due to the legal procedures. I don't know where he lives now and frankly, don't care. The photos he uploaded with his mistress on social media were also discovered by his company. Due to his past pretenses of living beyond his means, he couldn't endure the criticism and chose to resign voluntarily. That seemed like an inevitable outcome, considering his true nature. If I were to say one last thing, it would be this. Don't mind. I'm divorced now, but I see it as a learning experience and choose to look forward positively. My relationship with Sophia continues to this day. I plan to focus on my career without relying on a man, and enjoy my life as a single individual.